16B Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, WAFWA Midwinter Conference Update. Vice Chairman Robb, Commissioner Drew, and Director Ken Mayer. Reports from WAFWA's Midwinter meeting held January 2012. Commissioner Drew?
Commissioner Robb's over there snickering at me, so I assume I'll go first, and we'll make this quick since everyone's probably hungry and ready for a break. The WAFWA meeting I felt was very productive. I know when we approved members to go, there was some discussion on whether or not it was worth the sportsman dollars. As someone who's paid a lot of sportsman dollars over the years, I can tell you I thought it was well worth the money that was spent and far exceeded my expectations. I think we got there on a Wednesday evening. We were able to meet a lot of folks from surrounding states, whether they be directors or wildlife commissioners or some of the federal agency folks. In fact, we were able to have dinner with Amy Luters and Raul Morales, who I think that experience and time to discuss and meet and talk about things we agreed on and talk about things maybe we didn't agree on is probably why they came in and presented to our Public Lands Committee yesterday. So before the meeting even started, I think we took away some very good information. Friday morning, I actually attended the Sage Grouse Executive Oversight Committee that Ken mentioned in his diagram. Ken did a great job chairing the committee, and basically we went through the sage grouse update, but in much more detail and with all the players involved. So that was really interesting to sit in on. It was like drinking out of a fire hydrant, to be honest with you. Jack actually had gone to the commissioners meeting prior to that. The meetings kind of overlapped, and then I came in on the commissioners meeting about halfway through. But what happens at the commissioners meeting is they typically take three items of interest to the various commissioners from around the West, and they discuss those based on presentations from each state. So some of the things they talked about, one was alternative sources of funding. Like, for example, the state of Washington talked about their Discovery Pass, which is basically tailored towards state park lands and trails. Their Department of Wildlife's kind of tied in with their Parks Department. Wyoming talked about some of their Project Yes access programs, and that's access through private lands to hunt on those private lands or federal lands. Jack, I don't know if you had anything else from that morning session?
There was a lot of discussion on wolves that morning. We had Wyoming, Montana, Idaho in the room, and you know, they've all taken different approaches and all had different results. And the hardline result out of one state didn't pay off. It cost them time and being able to manage that animal by saying it's unprotected and doing some of the things that were the hard line. And the people that worked with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service more and developed plans and everything seemed to have more ability to deal with the wolves when they came. So that was one big takeaway I got from it. The other big, you know, just like Jeremy said, the ability to meet with the state director of the BLM a couple nights at dinner, some time with other commissioners, it's invaluable. You know, you have some discussion during the breakout or during the sessions, but what I find more valuable is the one-on-one time where you can ask state-specific questions about issues that we're facing that you know they've been through, mainly the wolf and sage grouse issues and stuff, and it's a tremendous value, and I'm glad that we do participate in that, and I'm glad that the department has budgeted for a couple directors to continue to go to these.
Any other comments?
There's a little bit more that I was going to hit on, just some of the high points.
Okay.
Jack mentioned that they had a pretty extensive discussion on the predator management, and I think Idaho, Montana, and I thought maybe Wyoming had done presentations on primarily their wolf and grizzly bear populations and some of the studies they're doing there. And if people want more information, they can talk to me. This is half of my stack of information. The other half is in the truck, so I can dig stuff out if you want it. They actually did some state updates and some things that were kind of interesting. One, because we had the bear discussion today, Arizona actually has a legislative bill in that would give the Arizona Wildlife Commission the authority over where people could hunt and not hunt in and around municipalities. So it would basically take the jurisdiction of designating congested areas out of the municipality's hands and put it into the Wildlife Commission's hands. I just thought that was kind of an interesting deal that they're working on, given some of the discussions that we've had. Colorado, the big thing there is they actually got merged from their own department into a state game and parks department is what they're calling it. And that's caused a lot of upheaval and unrest in Colorado. Idaho, I think one of their biggest issues right now, it sounds like, is their wolf hunt. They actually had 34,000 tags sold for their wolf hunt this year, which kind of blew my doors off. That was pretty amazing. Montana, their biggest issue right now, wolves. Jack provided our update. Let's see, I'm just kind of thumbing through my notes here. Utah, one of their biggest issues right now is on deer hunting. They actually manage for some pretty low buck to doe ratios. I want to say it was in their general units, it was like $15 per 100 does. They changed that to $18 per 100 does, and their sportsmen completely went bonkers because of the lost opportunity that they're facing. So when you compare that to Nevada and some of the stuff we're talking about with $30 per 100 does, it kind of puts that in context. There is a distinction in Utah. They kind of have opportunity areas where they manage, like I was saying, and then they have trophy areas. In their trophy areas, they're managing buck to doe ratios somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 45, I want to say, which is essentially how we're managing the state of Nevada, and I don't think that's a newsflash to anyone. The other thing Utah is doing, and they're kind of in a similar boat with us in terms of the wolf, is they actually are working on passing legislation to make the wolf a game animal, and they're working on developing a management plan with Fish and Wildlife Service. The other state that was really interesting on the wolf aspect was Wyoming, and I know we've had some discussions, and I don't know if Mel's here today or not, but he had some discussions for us at a couple commission meetings ago about the value of listing the wolf as a game species or a non-game species. And what Wyoming did is they actually listed it as a game species within their recovery zone and a non-game species outside of the recovery zone. In talking with the commissioners from Wyoming, they basically told us that the policy was pretty much out of their hands, that Fish and Wildlife Service was driving the boat, and that the only way they came to an agreement is basically their governor got everyone in a room and said, commissioners, department, and Fish and Wildlife Service, work something out. We need something other than being at loggerheads here. And that's kind of how it came together. It wasn't that the state drew a line in the sand and the feds caved to the line in the sand. It was a collaborative process that made that go. And their recommendation was for Nevada, hey, start getting a wolf management plan as soon as possible, make it what you think the state wants, and then try and get that through with the Fish and Wildlife Service. And I think Wyoming and Utah were both very clear in that same approach in their experience. So just something foreshadowing an issue we may have. And then we actually had, that pretty much wrapped up the first day. One of the items that they want to talk about in their meeting in Hawaii, and this was not something I recommended, but the commission wants to, or the commission committee actually wants to start getting into the wild horse discussion and talking about some of the issues associated with that in terms of wildlife and maybe what some of the other wildlife commissions can do. So I thought that was interesting coming from some of the other states. The next day we had the joint meeting between the directors and the commissioners. There was a ton of information that came together there. We talked about the Wyoming core sage grouse strategy and what they did in the state to address their sage grouse issue. Probably something the state of Nevada is going to be looking at as part of their task force. We had presentations and discussions on human dimensions and how folks view hunting and fishing in terms of the wildlife management context. And they gave us some very intriguing information on that. Again, I have it and I can share it. And then we talked a little bit about planning, wildlife corridors, and mapping, which is a big issue in a lot of other states. So that's kind of the range and gamut of issues we discussed. If anyone has questions or wants more information, I've got a lot of it. So again, it overwhelmed me in terms of how much information there was and how useful it was.
Okay, Commissioner Robb?
I have one quick follow-up on an item that Jeremy brought up that was going on in Arizona, and I have an update because I went to Missoula, Montana this week. There was municipalities and cities and counties in Arizona that were had a city council or a county commission that didn't like hunting, so they would ban hunting in that county or that municipality area, or they'd annex a big chunk of land. And I heard just this week that that bill had passed through the Arizona legislature, and now it's up to the Department of Fish and Game down there to regulate where hunting occurs, and it's been taken back out of the county's hands.
Cool. Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen, very much for the report, and obviously it's important we go to those meetings and that we learn all this good stuff, and so that's incumbent upon you guys that went to the meetings to permeate that good information in through our policies on this commission. So anyway, appreciate you doing that. Okay, let's go ahead and recess for lunch, and is a half hour good?
About 45 minutes.
45?
Yeah.
45 minutes.